interested in educating themselves because I brought a list of required reading on the marijuana laws that I'll leave with you and you can study at your leisure.
Name, please.
My name's Cliff-Schaffer, and I am the world's largest publisher of the major research on drug policy. We're all asking what to do about this. I've got the world's largest online collection on the subject, including the full text of every major government commission report on the subject over the last 100 years. The first thing you ought to know is why marijuana is illegal, because that's really why we're here. Marijuana was originally outlawed for two major reasons. The first major reason was all Mexicans are crazy and marijuana is what makes them crazy. The second reason was the fear that heroin addiction would lead to the use of marijuana, exactly the opposite of the modern gateway idea. At the only two doctors testified at the hearings for the congressional, for the Marijuana Tax Act, for the congressional hearings. The representative of the American Medical Association said that there was no evidence that marijuana was a dangerous drug and therefore no reason for the law. He pointed out that marijuana was used in 250 common medicines at the time. It was a very common part of the pharmacy at that point, with no reported problems. In response, the Congressional Committee told him that if he wasn't going to cooperate, he should shut up and leave. The only other doctor to testify was Dr. James C. Munch. His sole claim to fame was that he had injected some extract of marijuana directly into the brains of 300 dogs. And I think anybody here can tell you that injecting it directly to the brain is not the normal method of use. Two of the dogs died. When the Congressional Committee asked him what he concluded from this, he said that he didn't know what to conclude because he wasn't a dog psychologist. Dr. Munch later testified in court under oath that marijuana could make your fangs grow 6 inches long and drip with blood. Actually, he said the incisors would make you look like bleeding Bugs Bunny, and that when he tried it, it turned him into a bat. And everybody's probably seen that at parties. Now, Dr. Munch, that's not the punchline, by the way. Dr. Munch was the only doctor in the United States who thought marijuana should be illegal, so he was appointed U.S. official expert on marijuana, where he served for 25 years. This is where our marijuana laws come from. It was absolute lunacy from the very beginning, and the reason you're having so much trouble now is because you're trying to make sense of lunacy. All the reasons that you hear for marijuana being illegal, that it's addictive or it causes harm to the health or that sort of stuff, all that stuff was made up after people stopped believing that marijuana would turn you into a bat. Would you like to know how the gateway myth got started? In circa 1910, they believed that such things as snacking between meals and eating Mexicanized food, Taco Bell, would lead you to a drunkard's grave. In the 1920s, marijuana was outlawed in some states because of the belief that heroin would lead to marijuana. In 1937, Harry Anslinger, the head of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, said there was no connection between marijuana and heroin at all. In 1951, the story changed. Anslinger was up before Congress again asking for more money for the marijuana laws. Unfortunately for him, just before he testified, the head of the Federal Addiction Research Program said that the reasons for the marijuana laws were entirely bogus, and they knew that to a certainty. In response, Anslinger made up the idea that marijuana is the certain stepping stone to heroin, and contradicting all of the research at the time, as well as his own testimony from 14 years earlier. The General Accounting Office has said on several occasions that you simply cannot trust anything that comes out of the DEA or inter federal government agencies. The DEA's response is that they are not legally required to tell the truth. And therefore you get a lot of the stuff you see here. Now, I would just like to leave these with you.
Yes, you may, if you would just